November 24, 1971, Portland International Airport. 2:58 in the afternoon. The sky is gray. The runway is wet, and inside the terminal, a quiet man in a dark suit is waiting to board a short flight to Seattle. To everyone around him, he looks ordinary. But within hours, this man will vanish into the night and create one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history.
Northwest Orient Flight 305 is waiting at the gate. A Boeing 727, Portland to Seattle, just 32 minutes in the air. Short enough for passengers to relax, short enough for no one to expect trouble. 36 passengers, 6 crew members, one routine Wednesday afternoon. But this would not be a routine flight.
At some point in the minutes before boarding, a man walks through the terminal. He is unremarkable. He wears a dark business suit and carries a plain black briefcase.
He purchases his ticket under the name Dan Cooper.
Cash, one way.
He boards the aircraft and takes his seat, 18C, the aisle seat in the rear section of the plane. He is, by every account given later, polite, composed, ordinary. A businessman on a short hop north, as far as anyone around him can tell. But Dan Cooper is not a businessman, and he is not going to Seattle. He orders a bourbon and soda. He pays for it. He tips. Shortly after takeoff, as the Boeing 727 climbs into that slate-colored sky, Dan Cooper does something that will echo through decades of FBI investigations and unanswered questions. He turns to the flight attendant seated nearest to him. Her name is Florence Schaffner. He passes her a note. Florence Schaffner assumes for just a moment that it is the kind of note a lonely businessman slides to a flight attendant, a phone number, a flattering line. She nearly doesn't read it. But she does. And what she reads stops the blood in her veins. The note states in clear and unambiguous terms that he has a bomb. Schaffner walks to the rear of the cabin. She shows the note to the second flight attendant, Tina Mucklow. Mucklow reads it. Both women understand immediately that this is not a prank and not a misunderstanding. The man in 18C is calm in a way that is more frightening than rage would be. He is calm in the way that a man is calm when he is completely in control, or believes himself to be. Mucklow approaches him. He opens the briefcase just enough to let her see what is inside. Red cylinders, wires, a cylindrical device that, whether real or fabricated, looks convincingly, terrifyingly real. He closes the briefcase. He takes a sip of his bourbon. He tells Mucklow his demands, and she carries them back to the cockpit like dispatches from a war already lost. Captain William A. Scott has been flying for years. He is not a man who breaks easily. He receives the demands through Mucklow, relays them to ground control in Seattle, and does exactly what a seasoned pilot in an impossible situation must do. He keeps the plane in the air, keeps the passengers calm, and buys time. What happens next unfolds with a strange, suffocating patience. The plane circles Seattle-Tacoma International Airport for 2 hours while authorities on the ground scramble. The FBI is contacted. The airline cooperates. The money, all $200,000, bills photographed and serial numbers recorded, is assembled. The parachutes are procured. The fuel truck is positioned. In the air, Tina Mucklow moves through the cabin, quietly,
Do you need anything?
carefully, managing the passengers with a composure that speaks of extraordinary courage under circumstances no training manual could have fully prepared her for. At approximately 5:45 in the evening, Flight 305 lands in Seattle. He receives his money, a bag packed with the ransom, and the parachutes are brought aboard. Cooper allows all 36 passengers and 2 of the flight attendants to deplane. The aircraft refuels. Only a skeleton crew remains. Captain Scott, First Officer William Ratachak, Flight Engineer Harold Anderson, and Tina Mucklow. The plane takes off again into the Pacific Northwest night, now heading south toward Mexico City, or so Cooper has requested. But the flight crew, following Dan Cooper's strict demands, keeps the plane flying lower and slower than normal. Somewhere over the dense black wilderness between Seattle and Reno, over the Cascade Mountains, over the forests of southwestern Washington.
Sitting in the last row, Cooper tells Tina Mucklow to lower the Boeing 727's aft staircase. Terrified of the freezing storm, she struggles with the handle and offers to tie herself to a seat. Cooper changes his mind, deciding to lower the stairs himself after takeoff. He orders her into the cockpit and commands her to close the cabin curtain.
Close the curtains.
Leaving him entirely alone at the back of the aircraft.
At 7:42 p.m., a warning light illuminated in the cockpit. The aft staircase had been lowered. Then, at 8:13, a sudden pressure change and sharp upward movement shook the aircraft. The crew believed Cooper had jumped, giving investigators their best estimate of where he vanished into the night.
With its aft air stairs fully extended and creating heavy aerodynamic drag, Northwest Orient Flight 305 continued its flight through the turbulent weather. The aircraft made a safe landing at Reno Tahoe International Airport at approximately 10:15 p.m. Waiting on the tarmac, an armed detachment of FBI agents immediately surrounded and boarded the plane to secure the scene. However, a sweeping search confirmed the primary suspect was no longer on board.
He left behind his clip-on tie, 8 of the cigarettes he had smoked during the flight, and a weight of mystery so dense it would press down on the FBI for the next 50-plus years without ever breaking. The search begins immediately. Military aircraft are scrambled. Ground teams are deployed into the wilderness. The FBI launches what becomes one of the longest and most intensive manhunts in the Bureau's history. The terrain below the suspected jump zone is brutal, steep, heavily forested, riddled with rivers and ravines. The kind of land where a man could disappear even if he were standing still and waiting to be found. But Cooper was not standing still, and nobody could agree on exactly where he had jumped. Investigators analyze everything. The echoes of helicopters and shouting soldiers finally fade from the Pacific Northwest wilderness. For weeks, hundreds of Army troops, FBI agents, and tracking dogs have ripped through the dense, rain-soaked underbrush of southwest Washington. They have dragged Lake Merwin with a submarine. They have searched every cave, logging road, and tree canopy. The result is absolute silence. No body, no torn nylon, not a single trace of the man who stepped off the aft stairs of a Boeing 727 into a freezing storm. In early 1972, the massive ground search is quietly called off. The physical trail is dead. With the forest yielding nothing, the FBI pivots to its second, invisible trap, the money. Before the ransom was delivered in Seattle, alert bank officials had meticulously photographed every single one of the 10,000 $20 bills. The FBI now compiles these serial numbers into a massive master catalog. The Bureau distributes thousands of copies of this ransom list to banks, casinos, racetracks, and law enforcement agencies across the globe. Rewards are posted. A $25,000 bounty is offered to anyone who turns in a single bill matching a serial number on the list. The system is perfectly designed to catch Cooper the moment he tries to spend a single dollar. As the 1970s grind on, a chilling reality sets in at FBI headquarters. Despite millions of checks circulating through the global economy daily, not a single one of the serial numbers ever appears. The money
has completely vanished from the face of the earth.
In February of 1980, nearly 9 years after the hijacking, a young boy named Brian Ingram is picnicking with his family on the north bank of the Columbia River, roughly 40 miles downstream from Vancouver, Washington. He digs his hands into the sand near the riverbank and pulls up a rotting, disintegrating packet of bills.
The family turns the find over to the authorities. Forensic scientists at the FBI laboratory carefully dry out the brittle fragments of paper and begin the tedious process of reading the surviving ink. The match is perfect. It is $5,800 of the Cooper ransom money, badly eroded by river sediment, but unmistakably his.
The search teams return to dredge the beach, but once again, the earth gives up nothing more. The remaining $194,200 is never found, and not a single bill from the rest of the ransom has ever entered circulation to this day.
Over the decades, the FBI investigated more than 1,000 named suspects. Partial DNA evidence was recovered from Cooper's clip-on tie in later years, generating new theories, new leads, and ultimately, no confirmed answers.
In July of 2016, the FBI officially announced that it was suspending active investigation into the case, not closing it, not declaring it solved, but stepping back, redirecting resources, acknowledging the wall they had been running against for 45 years.
The case remains unsolved to this day. What compels people about Dan Cooper, about D.B. Cooper, the name a wire service reporter accidentally attached to him in the earliest coverage and which stuck forever after, is not simply the audacity of the crime. It is the completeness of the disappearance. In a world that leaves traces everywhere, that sheds evidence into every environment it passes through, this man stepped off the back of an airplane into a raging Pacific Northwest night and ceased to exist. He could have been anyone, and once he vanished into the stormy night, he became no one. That is precisely why, more than half a century later, the story of Northwest Orient Flight 305 still holds its grip on the American imagination. A ghost story that haunts us, firmly and without any intention of letting